see President Trump say this and what you envision as being behind it tactically?
Well, I think it's the sign of a great leader who understands he's in a terrific political news cycle. He's run a really good campaign from start up to this point, and the left's mischaracterization of Project 2025 had become a liability. I think we've seen that really turn around in the last few days since that statement. So no hard feelings from any of us at Project 2025 about the statement, because we understand Trump is the standard bearer and he's making a political, tactical decision there.
I got good, scary news. We have the proof. Remember when Trump said that he knew nothing about Project 2025, a project also known as a mandate for leadership? Remember when he said he didn't know who was behind it, pretending that he had no knowledge that it was in fact the Heritage Foundation that was the organization that drafted, developed, and then published the policies contained in Project 2025? If you don't remember, here are his very words just a few days ago. And do you remember when I told you that Trump had been a keynote speaker at the Heritage Foundation? Well, this may shock you, but we now have proof that Donald Trump lied when he said he knew nothing about Project 2025, because they found the clip of his keynote speech at, you guessed it, the Heritage Foundation. So is it true that Trump really didn't know anything about a mandate for leadership, also known as Project 2025? Let's hear it from his very own mouth, shall we?
The critical job of institutions such as Heritage is to lay the groundwork, and Heritage does such an incredible job at that. This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Well, there you have it, folks. You can add this one to the over 30,000 lies that Trump has said so far. But this one's probably the most dangerous one.
When you see President Trump say this and what you envision as being behind it tactically?
Well, I think it's the sign of a great leader who understands he's in a terrific political news cycle. He's run a really good campaign from start up to this point, and the left's mischaracterization of Project 2025 had become a liability. I think we've seen that really turn around in the last few days since that statement. So no hard feelings from any of us at Project 2025 about the statement, because we understand Trump is the standard bearer and he's making a political, tactical decision there.
Journalists and pundits who are complaining about this should know where to look to find the specific policies Harris and the Democrats are running on, because they're in the same place. They always are, a party platform. They do this every 4 years. The 2024 Democratic Party platform is available for free online through the Democratic Party's website, as well as other sources. I'll link to it in the video description as well. 92 pages. On page 9, still in the economy chapter, quote, Democrats will keep fighting to pass the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, to give everyone the right to organize for better pay, benefits, and working conditions, and to hold abusive bosses accountable for violating workers' rights. Later in the same paragraph, quote, we'll work to pass the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act, guaranteeing public sector bargaining rights, and to codify a right to organize for domestic workers, farm workers, and other unprotected laborers. On page 13, quote, we'll keep pushing to restore the expanded child tax credit and earned income tax credit, which proved so effective at reducing poverty before Republicans let them expire. We'll work to finally raise the federal minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. We'll fight for paid leave, better health care, and more investment in public schools and affordable housing. We'll further expand public transit, connecting communities that have been cut off for too long. And we'll continue to reject Republican proposals to increase poverty by making devastating cuts to programs that vulnerable Americans count on. From page 15 in Chapter 2, which is devoted to tax policy, Democrats will protect everyone earning less than $400,000 a year from any tax increase, and we will fight to protect and expand other tax benefits for working people and families with children. From further down the same page and continuing on to page 16, Democrats will make billionaires pay a minimum income tax rate of 25%, raising $500 billion in 10 years. We'll end the preferential treatment for capital gains for millionaires, so they pay the same rate on investment income as on wages. We'll put an end to abusive life insurance tax shelters and stop billionaires from exploiting retirement tax incentives that are supposed to help middle-class families save. We'll eliminate the stepped-up basis loophole for the wealthiest Americans so they can't avoid paying taxes on their wealth by passing it down to heirs. Democrats will close the carried interest loophole, which wealthy fund managers have long used to halve tax rates on their own personal pay so they pay a lower rate than some teachers or firefighters do. That's wrong. And we'll increase our new stock buyback tax to 4% to discourage stock buybacks that benefit executives and wealthy shareholders instead of workers and consumers. On page 31, to help find new ways of generating and storing energy, reducing emissions, and boosting climate resilience, we'll launch an Advanced Research Projects Agency for Climate, ARPA-C, modeled on the Defense Research Agency that's behind breakthrough technologies like the Internet and GPS, and the new ARPA-H that the administration created to transform medicine. We'll also establish a new national lab for climate research and innovation affiliated with an HBCU, Hispanic, or other minority-serving institution to ensure the opportunities of the future are available to everyone and built by everyone. And we will continue to invest in climate research across NASA, NOAA, the National Science Foundation, and other agencies to make sure that America leads the world in clean energy innovation. Page 33, continuing to page 34, will require that low-carbon materials and clean power be used in all new federal buildings by 2030 and invest in upgrading VA hospitals, federal offices, and K-12 public school and community college buildings, making them innovative, energy efficient, and safe places to learn. To help people deal with the ongoing effects of climate change and build more climate-resilient communities, from page 36, going forward, Democrats will work to pass the bipartisan Disaster Resilience Tax Credit to help low- and middle-income families and small businesses invest in preparing for and easing the impact of storms, heat, flood, and other natural disasters. From the chapter on gun regulation and criminal justice reform, page 40, Democrats will establish universal background checks, a step supported by the vast majority of Americans, including gun owners. We will once again ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. We will require safe storage for guns. Democrats will end the gun industry's immunity from liability, so gun makers can no longer escape accountability. We will pass a national red flag law to prevent tragedies by keeping weapons out of dangerous hands. We will increase funding to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms for enforcement and prosecution, and to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for firearm background checks. And because the gun violence epidemic is a public health crisis, we will fund gun violence research across the Centers for Disease Control and National Institutes of Health, as well as community violence interventions. Page 42, Democrats will take action to expunge federal marijuana-only convictions. We will combat drug trafficking and expand the use of drug courts, interventions, and diversion for people with substance abuse disorders. We will fund a new Accelerating Justice System Reform Grant Program to provide jurisdictions with critical resources to foster community trust and safety, reduce inequity and justice system involvement, and alleviate burdens on police. We will expand access to public defenders and step up civil rights enforcement, including by boosting funding for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division and hiring 50 new assistant U.S. attorneys. Page 44, we continue to strengthen the Violence Against Women Act, keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, and expand housing and legal services for survivors. To keep students safe on campus, we will work with schools to implement and enforce Title IX and end sexual harassment and assault in our nation's schools. We will eliminate the rape kit backlog, and we will strengthen legal protections for and support survivors of deepfake image-based sexual abuse, building on the federal civil cause of action established under the President's reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act in 2022. Page 48, on voting rights, Democrats will pass and President Biden, now presumably President Harris, will sign the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act to fully secure the right to vote in every state, ensure fair congressional maps for every American, modernize and secure our elections, and curtail the corrupting influence of money in politics. Page 50 on reproductive rights. With a Democratic Congress, we will pass national legislation to make Roe the law of the land again. We will strengthen access to contraception so every woman who needs it is able to get and afford it. We will protect a woman's right to access IVF. We will repeal the Hyde Amendment. And in his second term, President Biden, again, presumably President Harris, will do the same thing here, will continue to support access to FDA-approved medication abortion, appoint leaders at the FDA who respect science, and appoint judges who uphold fundamental freedoms. Page 51, women's rights. Democrats will work to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act and end pay inequity not just in the federal workforce, but throughout the economy, with penalties for companies that discriminate against women. Page 53, racial equity. By investing in community lenders, we're driving an estimated $130 billion more in loans to Black and Latino communities over the next decade. Going forward, we'll double that funding for community development financial institutions and expand and make permanent a new markets tax credit to encourage development in places too long left behind. Page 56, LGBTQ equality. Democrats will pass the Equality Act to codify protections for LGBTQI plus Americans and their families. We will prohibit employment discrimination in the federal government, including contractors, and make federally funded seniors programs LGBTQI plus inclusive. Page 62, Arts and Humanities. Democrats will fund the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and art and music education in public schools. Page 63, D.C. statehood. We unequivocally support statehood for D.C. Same page, representation for Puerto Rico and other U.S. territories. Democrats support the enactment of the Puerto Rico Status Act, H.R. 2757, and promote full civic and political representation for Puerto Ricans. We will work to end its unequal treatment by the federal government and fight to provide equal access to federal programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and the CTC. Democrats also support self-determination for the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. We will create a congressional task force to study equal voting rights and House representation, and we will work to ensure equal access to federal programs like Veterans Benefits, the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, and SNAP food assistance for all those eligible. Democrats support funding to improve critical healthcare facilities in the territories, including construction of a state-of-the-art medical complex in Guam that co-locates health agencies on a single campus for a more integrated healthcare system that will benefit the region. I'm only on page 63, y'all. This goes on for almost 30 more pages. I'm only quoting bits that refer to specific policies or the intention to address specific issues. I showed you this year's Democratic Party platform. There it is, 92 pages. The Republican Party's platform, they did bother to draft one this time, is 16 pages. I'll link it in the video description as well, so if you're interested, you can compare.